Sure, two guys can use their EBT cards to rent dune buggies and film themselves in the desert with perfect high definition using just a selfie stick and a GoPro camera, but that by itself doesn't prove SpaceX is fake. It just makes you skeptical of SpaceX, and that's not enough to prove anything. Sure, we're skeptical that a multi-million-dollar space agency can only give us this one image of the most historic landing in space history from a helicopter 3.5 miles away with a zoom lens. And of course I'm skeptical that the video cuts out right now at the landing and kind of comes back, and that's unexplained. But that's not proof either. Sure, I'm skeptical that a 3-ton pencil can guide itself from 50 miles out all the way down to a little tiny barge with two little waffle irons on either side and a few little burns of the retro rocket. Sure, I'm skeptical how two George Foreman grills take this thing all the way down safely to its pad. I'm skeptical when I see a shadow of a rocket pointing one direction and a shadow of the water tower on the right pointing in a different direction. Even though the animation demonstration uses a pencil instead of a rocket, so what? How about how the host tells you you're probably not going to be able to see the landing, then you don't see the landing, and then he apologizes again for you not being able to see the landing.
You can see it on your screen right there. It is possible we might cut out for a second. The vibration from the engines can sometimes shake the satellite link a little bit, but we hope to give you full video through. You'll be able to see what's
frame here.
And
there it is. You're seeing what we're
incredible shot right there. You saw the video cut out for about 2 seconds, and then suddenly the first stage was standing right there. That's incredible. Everyone here is obviously very excited. The vibration from the engines can sometimes shake the satellite link a little bit, but we hope to give you...
Vibrations from the engine can sometimes shake the satellite link a little bit? How would you know? I thought this was the first landing on the barge you're going to film up close. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, where's the original footage then? Show me the footage after the fact then. If the satellite link cut out, then where's the raw footage from the cameras that were actually on the barge? Why wasn't the satellite link shaken for these images? The only 3 good images, apparently good images we have of this thing landing on the barge, all come at night. 3 different angles of it landing on a barge, all coming at night. Is that proof? No. Is it odd? So basically one of the first times they're ever landing on the barge, they're doing it at night where no one can see anything if anything were to go wrong? Doesn't make any sense. Took me a while to see this, and this is the heart of the evidence, so please let me know what you think about this particular piece of evidence. But this video will get very tedious from here on in, potentially exposing one of the biggest hoaxes of all time in potentially a novel way here. Lends itself to a lot of detail and maybe not a fun video, but this is the way it has to be done. Let there be light, but no sound. What do I mean by this? Now I'm going to show the same clip. What you'll notice, it's very quiet on the barge, just the hum of a generator, very quiet night out there in the ocean. You'll see the light from the rocket first, but it takes 3 seconds to hear the sound, and this is the basis. We know from this video that the rocket doesn't fire until it's relatively close to the pad of the barge. It starts to fire, you can actually see the barge. So the delay time between what you would expect the speed of light, the illumination, and what you hear, the speed of sound, is impossible to reconcile. In order to go farther, we have to make sure we're on the same exact page. So one, when I talk about a difference between that illumination that comes over the entire barge and a 3-second delay before you hear the thrusters, we have to agree on what that illumination is. To me, the rocket has fired. It's coming down to the barge. We see that when we hear that hum of the generator, and before the sound of the rocket and the initial illumination, the barge is very quiet. It's very dark. There's not a lot of spotlights, and there's an obvious illumination. I'll show you the video again at some point. An obvious illumination that occurs, and a 3-second delay between the sound. So the obvious, if you agree, we have to agree that that illumination is from the massive rocket coming in. Of course it is. What else could it be? Somebody just happened to throw the lights on the barge at exactly that time? No. So for those that agree with me, let's move forward. So the knee-jerk reaction now as well, of course, there's a difference between the speed of light, the speed of sound. It's the old classic see a flash of lightning out the window and then count to 10, and then we divide by 5, and we can determine then that the storm is 2 miles away using the relative difference in speed between light and sound, which is dramatic. But the rule of thumb with lightning and thunder is you simply count and then you divide by 5, and that gives you the distance. So here we count 3. We see the illumination of the light. The light has reached the barge, and there's absolutely a full 3 seconds, if not a little bit more, before that initial that sound. So by this calculation, you would say 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. So it's well over half a mile away. It would be well over half a mile away before it started to light its thrusters. But that means that you'll see from the video, from the moment we see the light to the moment the rocket is basically right on top or coming into view over the barge is roughly 7 to 8 seconds. So this thing is barreling through the atmosphere from 50 miles up with no thruster. I would say also, where's the sonic boom? But let's just say they turned the camera on late and the sonic boom, they already got that out of the way. So the thing's coming in over the speed of sound, just dropping like a lead pencil. We know from this and other videos, it falls. It's falling. It must be 700-800 miles an hour. And then relatively close to the barge, it fires its rockets. It's not like it fires its rockets at 12,000 feet and comes in slowly. Absolutely not. We know from the other video I showed where the camera is attached to the side of the hull. I guess it's like Star Trek, the hull, the breached hull. We know it fires pretty late, like a parachuter that pulls really close to the ground. You could think of the lighting of the engine like a parachuter pulling the parachute. So it just doesn't seem to add up to me. Number one, again, from my calculations, if the difference between seeing the light and hearing the sound per one counting to 3 and dividing by 5 is 0.6 or just over half a mile, it would need to have traveled half a mile distance in just about 7 seconds. You know how fast it would need to be coming in? And I would say to SpaceX, well, why would you have this thing hurling towards the barge at 750 miles an hour? I don't even at 700 miles an hour, I don't think it could travel that far in just 7 seconds. You know, it's open for debate, but there is another factor here that, you know, I would close my case with if I was a defense attorney trying this case in a court of law. I would say, okay, let's just say all of this is correct. You know, that 3 second delay is because it was you know, more than half a mile out, and that's why we saw the light, and then we heard the sound 3 seconds later. And I would say, well, do you think a rocket half a mile or more up in the air, when it fires, would light your barge? Okay, maybe. I doubt a rocket that's relatively small, when it's half a mile away, when it lights, it's going to light up your entire barge like what we saw there. Okay, I'll even give you that. So, Your Honor, if I can take a little bit of respite, what was my close? My close was this, that you don't hear the rocket coming up gently or quietly like a train in the distance. And then when it's on top of you, we don't hear any change in the sound. So if the initial firing of the rocket was over a half-mile away, why is the level of the sound completely consistent? In fact, if I have a chance, I'll show you in this video, it actually gets quieter as it's coming right in up on the barge. If anything, you'd hear a faint rocket in the distance, and if it was coming in that hot where it could travel more than a half-mile in just 7 or 8 seconds, it would be a quiet rocket sound, and it would get extremely loud from a decibel level right when it was on top of the barge. But what we have is a consistent sound level. So to me, there is no way that I can explain the 3-second delay between the illumination and the sound itself, especially considering the sound is consistent and really doesn't get any louder, even as the thing is only 4 or 5 feet above the barge. That's my best evidence that this thing is fake. Now, I hope someone can explain this to me. Here's the audio of the rocket here. See that dip? So it doesn't come up slowly. It starts very abruptly. And then what's that dip for? Watch. Boom. Level, drops down as it gets closer. Doesn't make any sense. If it was coming in from a half-mile away, it would be like a slow rise in a mountain with the sound. It wouldn't happen all at once, and then in a few seconds you'll see that dip. What is that all about? That's the sound, SpaceX provided sound going down. This isn't faked. Spikes, level, down, which is impossible if this thing's coming in at 700 miles an hour. So I'm just saying, a train you hear coming in from far away, it's impossible for the train to get loud, get softer as it's coming towards you, and then get loud again. That's just not possible for something coming towards you. So SpaceX, how did I do? Did I prove you guys to be a fake? Tell me what you think, SpaceX.
That's incredible. Everyone here is obviously very excited.
Just getting the last barrel is going in. Landing legs should be deploying in about 10 seconds or so. That is a view from the landing pad.
That is that first stage
Coming
coming
back.
back down to land at Cape Canaveral. History in the making, guys.
Stage 1 is landed. LZ-1, the Falcon is landed. Landing operators moving to procedure 11.100, section 3 on LZ-1 VNet and recovery net.
Repeat, the Falcon has landed.